Hello and welcome to another episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander. This is Deck Break It Down. Today we're going to be talking about Vampire Card Draw, and can it work? Spoiler, I'm pretty sure it can. So today's deck is Elenda and Azor. This is a special one because chat actually helped me make this when I was streaming on Twitch. So long story long, I wanted to make a vampire deck with the bats from Bloomburrow. I started just pulling out all the cards I had from black and white, making a giant stack. I had taken apart my card draw deck because it just wasn't working. So I had all these card draw spells, and I was like, well, wait a second, what if I put them into the vampires? Like, is there a commander that'll work for that? I started looking up the color combinations and found Elenda and Azor. So it's a 6/6 flyer with Ward 2, which is pretty good. It does cost 6 mana to cast it. And it says, whenever Elenda and Azor attacks, you may pay X and white, blue, black. If you do, draw X cards. So right there, card draw is pretty awesome in the commander itself. But at the beginning of each end step, you may pay 4 life. If you do, create a number of 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens with lifelink equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. And that's each turn. So if you're able to draw cards on your opponent's turns, you can still pay 4 life at the end step and make a bunch of lifelink vampires. So with that, I was like, okay, I got my commander. Let's pull some more card draw spells, put them together, and I had a stack of over 180 cards. So I went onto Twitch and streamed the process as I was just entering them all into Moxfield, and had chat give me a bunch of suggestions. So by the end of it, we had about 200 cards, and chat helped me whittle them down to 100. And this is the deck you see. I've playtested it here on Moxfield a number of times, and it seems to do actually pretty good. Now, it's not going to win turn 3 or anything crazy, but it does seem to be pretty consistent, having a really good board state by like turn 8 or higher, and which is about pretty much all my decks. There's no doubt that we can tweak it and make it go faster and more powerful. This is still just a first run. So let's go over what makes up the deck. Obviously, we've gone over the commander already. I do have one Planeswalker, Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, +1, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink. So it's just more lifelink. -2, you get an emblem where creatures you control get +1/+0. That's great because if all I'm making is a bunch of 1/1s, they need to get stronger. And the -6, destroy up to 3 target creatures and other planeswalkers, return each card put into a graveyard that way under your control. Probably never even going to try to go for that one, honestly, except for in rare occasions. The way I decided with the help of chat to build the deck is it's mainly tokens, static buffs on the field, and card draw. So the idea is to draw as many cards as I can each turn, pay 4 life, make a ton of tokens, and then have those tokens automatically get buffed by things that you'll see later on. And we're also trying to take advantage of that lifelink for something like Aetherflux Reservoir. And so we've got some creatures that gain us life when creatures come in. So if I'm getting a bunch of 1/1 tokens coming in at my end step, I'm going to gain a bunch of life as well. So that offsets the 4 life I paid to get them. Speaking of which, let's go into the creature list. We've got Starion, of course, because mainly for his trigger, because if someone lost life, you can make him lose that much life again, or almost more important is that you get that life gain a second time. We've got Azor, the Lawbringer, because I just thought it was fun to have Azor's solo card in the deck, but he also has the card draw aspect. So even if the commander gets blown up or returned to the command zone, we can have Azor out. We can still do the card draw. Now, we won't get the trigger of making the tokens, of course, but we still get the card draw. And as I've said a million times on my channel, card draw is paramount. If you've got a good high level of card draw in your deck, you're going to be in a much better place, because whatever you need, you will draw into. You need the destruction spells. If you need more creatures, if you need more ramp, you're going to draw into it. If you're always drawing cards, and you're always going to have more cards in hands, which means more options against your opponents. Then we've got things like Bloodline Keeper, help makes creature tokens, Charismatic Conqueror. This is an interesting one because whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control untapped, they may tap that permanent. If they don't, you make a 1/1 white vampire with lifelink. So depending on what their board state's like, they'll probably let them come in tapped, but that means that their shields are down. And if they don't, then that means you get more creatures. Cliffhaven Vampire is a good one. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Commissar, whenever it attacks, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Idealistically, if I can get a bunch of 1/1s, even if they're just 1/1s, if I've got 10 of them and I swing, cool. Now each opponent loses 10 life. Consecrated Sphinx, that's just card draw engine because, again, I want to be drawing as many cards as possible in turns. And if it's someone else's turn, they draw 3-4 cards, I'm drawing 6, I will absolutely pay the 4 life again to make a bunch of 1/1 tokens. Drawn as Emissary, beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses life, you gain a life, more life gain. Epicure of Blood, you gain life, each opponent loses a life. Indulging Patriarch, beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life, each opponent loses 3 life. Shouldn't be a problem with the way the deck's built. Legion Lieutenant, a favorite card of mine for vampire decks. Other vampires get +1/+1. Now those 1/1 tokens you're making are 2/2s. And they lifelink, so that's even better. Now here we got Life Creed Duo, because that is also going to gain you a life every time a creature enters the battlefield under your control. Mirkwood Bats, you're going to be making a ton of tokens, so this will hit each opponent for 1 life. Mondrake, of course, it's, extra tokens. You're going to want that out. Moonshaker Cavalry is the white Crater Hoof, and in a deck like this, hopefully I've got 5, 10, 15, 1/1 tokens out. Drop Moonshaker, and now they have flying, lifelink, and they're going to be huge. Suture Priest, another engine for life gain whenever you play a creature, or whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. And with Viscera Seer, you can actually sacrifice some of those tokens to scry 1 if you're not getting the kind of cards you need. Moving on to sorceries, Approach of the Second Sun is just a pet card of mine. I love it. I haven't won very many times with it, but in a card draw deck, the chances go up a lot higher, and it's a secondary win con for the deck. So if the commander keeps getting destroyed or bounced back to command zone 3-4 times, it's too expensive to recast. But Approach of the Second Sun is a way to get through and win. We've got a lot of card draw spells in the sorcery, like Distant Melodies. You choose vampires, you draw a bunch of cards for that. Of One Mind, just you've hopefully got a human and a non-human. Pay 1 mana, draw 2 cards. Season of Weaving, great one if you don't need the other aspects. You can just draw 5 cards off of it. Camu's Epiphany, Shared Discovery, things like that. We also have Merciless Eviction, because that can get rid of either enchantments, artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers, depending on what we need gone at the time to help protect ourselves. Moving on to Instance. Instance is basically about protection, about keeping me alive so that I can make the tokens and swing out. We've got things like Everybody Lives, Comeuppance, Batwing Broom, Aetherize is always a favorite, and of course Path to Exile because it's white and it's a targeted shot. Get rid of a really big creature or someone's commander that they're using for an engine. Keep Watch is another great card draw spell, and then you don't have to use it on yours, so if anybody swings a big board state, drop Keep Watch, draw a bunch of cards off of it. Now we've got the artifacts. Obviously the duo I love of Aether Flux and Alamar's Archive, because that doubles the life you gain, and then pay 50 life, you blast somebody with a laser beam. We've got all of our normal mana rocks, just trying to make sure that we have enough mana and the right colors. Plus, a lot of these mana rocks can be sacrificed to draw a card, like Mind Stone, Letter of Acceptance, Commander Sphere. You get the idea. Then moving on to enchantments, this is where we're going to try and get a lot of the buffs and hopefully get the creatures through. So we've got Caretaker's Talent, if we can get it to its 3rd level. Creature tokens get +2/+2. Cover of Darkness is fun because then all your creatures have fear, so they can only be blocked by black creatures or artifact creatures. Porcelain Gallery is a great one, because if you do have 3 or 4 or 5 tokens plus a couple creatures, they all have base power 7/7 or 8/8 or whatever. Flowering of the White Tree, Glorious Anthem, Tangible Virtue, all buffing your tokens and creatures so that you're swinging with a lot more damage and gaining more life so that you can hopefully fire off Aether Flux Reservoir faster. For the card draw aspect, we've got Phyrexian Arena, Nefarious Ageless Insight, and Rhystic Study to try and really ramp up that card draw during your turn or your opponent's turn, depending on when they're casting things. And then, of course, the lands are pretty much just a bunch of lands that tap for 1 or 2 colors or 3 colors, whatever you can do. That's probably something else that can get tweaked a little faster and better. That's going to require a lot more play just to see which colors I'm lacking in terms of when I get the lands. But there you go. What do you think? Have you made a vampire card draw deck like this? What would you suggest? But as I've said, based off of the playtests, this deck is actually pretty strong and pretty good. As long as you get a couple of these creatures that help things out and maybe a buff out, you're going to be doing some serious damage, drawing a lot of cards, making a lot of tokens, and hopefully gaining a lot of life. I'm really excited to start playing this against actual people on streams and stuff. I'll probably be playing it through Moxfield for a while as I save up the money and buy the cards. None of them are super expensive, but I definitely want to get it in paper, and it's going to take a little bit. As you can see there, it says the deck cost is $480. That's just on those particular versions. I think I have maybe 50 or 60 of the cards, like actually from what I had, because I don't have Astarion, I don't have Azor, things like that I'm going to have to pick up, and some of them are more expensive. But I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a fun deck. I can't wait to play it a bunch. And I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. I hope you saw some cards you want to put in your vampire deck. And again, like I said, if you have one, if you have Elenda and Azor, what do you have in yours? Let me know. Thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe, throw some likes around, and I will see you next time.